Belief in an afterlife reflects a view of human existence that connects the world of the living with the supernatural realm in a seamless continuum. For this reason, both burial rites and commemorization of ancestors have played important roles in ancient life. For instance, hundreds of Hopewell burial mounds dot the landscape of the Midwest, holding the graves of thousands of leaders and lesser personages, each buried with distinctive grave furniture, some with elaborate, highly prestigious artifacts such as mica and copper ornaments. The building of the Hopewell mounds was carried out step by step as the dead were deposited on an earthen platform that was later covered with a large mound. The famed Great Serpent Mound in Ohio is the latest ceremonial earthwork, whose exact religious significance still escapes us. Most societies' religious beliefs were interpreted and maintained through regular religious rituals conducted at specific times of the year, as at harvest and planting. These regular ceremonies were vital to the elaborate organization of newly emerging complex societies. The predictability yearly rounds of religious life gave society an orderly framework for redistributing food, disposing of surplus cattle, accumulating wealth, and other economic functions. The long-term effects of these new unifying religious beliefs were startling. Between 1150 and 850 BC, Mesoamerican society began to undergo a rapid transformation. Administrative and religious authority came together in the hands of leaders of a newly ranked society, with specialists and a hierarchy of settlements. This organization contrasted with the dispersed villages of earlier times. More elaborate public buildings appeared as temples, and monumental buildings began to reflect individual communities' common involvement in public work. In Mesoamerica and elsewhere, the ultimate sacred beliefs and rituals of a society are linked to the processes of social and environmental changes that act upon it. In recent years, many researchers have turned to ethnohistorical and historical records to decipher ancient religious beliefs. Only a few years after the Spanish conquest of Mexico, missionary Fray Bernardo laboriously recorded a mass of information about Aztec life and civilization gleaned from Indian survivors of the conquest. In his great work, A General History of the Things of New Spain, he described not only early Aztec history, but also minute details of Indian religion, even Aztec philosophy and poetry. Modern scholars are interpreting his writings and discovering that ancient religious beliefs were at least as sophisticated and complex as the Catholic beliefs that replaced them. David Lewis Williams is an expert on the prehistoric rock art of southern Africa, an art tradition painted on the walls of caves and rock shelters for thousands of years until Europeans came in the 18th and 19th centuries AD. This art depicts animals, hunters during the chase, scenes of camp life, and religious ceremonies, as well as complex signs and symbols. No painters survived into this century, but Lewis Williams dug into early oral traditions of the paintings collected by 19th century investigators, who also recorded some of the San oral traditions about the paintings. His research has enabled him to evaluate some of the paintings of eland and other animals and their ancient symbolic context. The paintings were integral to the symbolic world of the San, a world intimately tied to the animals they hunted. David Friedel and Linda Shelley's work on Mayan cosmology is a fine example of this type of research. They have used changes in Mayan images and hieroglyphics to study the meaning of symbols associated with political power. For example, the religious symbology of Mayan society in 100 BC was based on the passage of Venus as morning and evening star with the rising and setting of the sun. The people in any Mayan community could identify and verify their cosmos simply by observing the sky. As time went on, Mayan cosmology was expanded and elaborated. Initially, the names of rulers were not recorded publicly. Perhaps such permanent verification on public monuments was not yet deemed necessary. After AD 200, Mayan rulers followed a quite different strategy. They legitimized their rule through genealogies, public ceremonies, and monuments. Much art was commissioned as part of this process of legitimizing rulers, who claimed identity with gods in the Mayan cosmos. Friedel and Shelley believed that the metaphor of twin ancestors, Venus and the Sun, proved a poignant image for lateral blood ties between lineages, communities, and everyone who believed in the same myths. Because twins are of the same womb and blood, so the Maya are all of common ancestry and blood. This Maya research shows that we should never think of religion and ritual in isolation, but rather as integral to social organization, economic life, and political systems. The ideas and beliefs, the core of all religions, are reflected in many aspects of human life, especially in art and architecture. Every society has its own model of how the world is put together, its own ultimate beliefs. Those sacred propositions are interpreted for the faithful through a body of theology and ritual. The rituals are more or less standardized religious acts, often repeated at regular times of the year, at harvest, planting, and other key times. Others are performed when needed, marriages, funerals, and the like. Some societies, such as those of the ancient Egyptians and the Maya, made regular calendars to time religious events and astronomical cycles. These regular ceremonies performed important functions not only in integrating society, but also in such activities as redistributing food, controlling population by infanticide, and dispersing surplus male cattle in the form of ritually accumulated wealth. Religious experiences are predominantly emotional, often supernatural and awe-inspiring. A religion operates through sanctified attitudes, values, and messages. An ethic that adds a sacred blessing, derived from the ultimate sacred propositions of the society, to elicit predictable responses from the people. Such predictability, sparked by directives from some central religious authority, ensures the orderly operation of society. In time, as in Mesoamerica, that authority can become secular as well. The institutions and individuals associated with these messages can become sanctified, for they are associated with the sacred propositions that lie at the heart of the society's beliefs. As societies become more complex, so does the need for a stable framework to administer the needs of the many increasingly specialized subgroups that make up the society as a whole. Religious beliefs are intangible and survive only in the form of temples, ritual paraphernalia, and art. Viewed in isolation, the study of ancient religion seems a hopeless task, if archaeological finds are the only source of information available. But if one views religion and ritual as integral to a society and closely tied to all other aspects of its activities, there is some hope that we may be able to look at ritual and religious artifacts in the context of a society as a whole. One example comes from the valley of Oaxaca, Mexico, between 1400 and 1150 BC. Modest temples appear in local villages built on adobe and earth platform. Rare conch shell trumpets and turtle shell drums traded from the coastal lowlands were apparently used in public ceremonies in such buildings. Clay figurines of dancers wearing costumes and masks that make them look like fantastic creatures and animals, as well as pottery masks, also appear at the same time. So does another religious artifact, the stingray spine imported from the Gulf of Mexico, used in personal self-mutilation rituals of bloodletting. The Spanish describe how the Aztec nobles would gash themselves with knives or with fish and stingray spines in religious acts of mutilation that were penance before their gods. Thus, argued archaeologist Kent Flattery, there were three levels of religious ceremony: personal bloodletting, dances run by kin groups, which cut across household lines, and public rituals in ceremonial buildings involving a region wider than one's village. The most effective way to study such intangibles as social organization or religious beliefs and rituals is to consider them as integrated into a society, closely tied to all other aspects of its activities. The rituals that ensure the continuation of religious beliefs are reflected in architecture and art, and the presence or absence of sacred artifacts in the archaeological record may reveal valuable information on prehistoric religion, provided that research designs are carefully made.